The newest 2.3 update has a few important things that need to be addressed when it comes to wishing, and these are the 5 considerations you don't want to miss out on. It's been such a long time since we've seen this Alchemist's banner, but Albedo is finally coming back in 2.3 update. Now, there's a few critical things we need to go through, because 1.2 update happened almost a year ago, and most of the stuff people assume about him has become outdated to say the least. First, let's address the whole situation about his place in team building. While he has some minor setbacks like every other character in the game, back when he first came out, the biggest concern about him was his geo alignment, because the element lacks offensive reactions, even though his damage output is really good. And one thing a lot of players tend to forget is that unlike normal characters who scale with attack, his main source of damage, which is the elemental skill, desperately needs defense to be viable, and while it is okay to leave any damage dealer at level 80 and obtain the rest of the performance from their weapon, Albedo's ascension to level 90 provides around 10 to 15% overall damage increase, which is quite a similar phenomenon you would notice when using animal characters, since their swirls depend on the character's level as well. Basically, if you're thinking of unlocking him or getting extra constellations, don't neglect maxing out his level, because even if he is considered a support character, he depends on defense, which you can gain more of when leveling him up. The other big thing you've probably heard at least a few times was that his initial banner's timing was absolutely horrific, since he got squished between Zhongli and Coco Goat, who overshadowed his debut, and it didn't help that Geo and the guy who liked Osmathius wine weren't even buffed at the time. See, the thing is, now that Geo's resonance is pretty rock solid, Albedo really shines in geocentric teams. He does struggle with energy generation if he is the only geo character in your comp, but that's not the issue. The bigger focus has to be just how much value he gets from utilizing the geo resonance bonus, because the combination of resistance shred and damage boost is pretty insane, and since there are no offensive reactions he can take advantage of, that geo bonus plays a crucial role in his overall performance. But besides crunching some numbers to get to the best value out of him, we now know that Itto and Goro are coming, both of which are going to play a major role in shaping Geo's future, and since Albedo's playstyle is so easy to integrate into basically any team, you can bet your top Primo Gem this guy is going to be amazing in a mono Geo team. And let's not forget about the upcoming artifact set, which is tailor-made for him, and if you do decide to build more than one Geo character, well, you're going to see some big bloom numbers. Overall, Albedo's biggest strength has to be his set it and forget it playstyle, the flexible role he provides for many teams, and the insane power growth he will get in 2.3 update. The news about MiHoYo's decision to include dual banners in 2.3 definitely caused a lot of discussion in the community, and now that we know Albedo and Eula are both going to be available on separate banners at the same time during the first phase of 2.3, well, it's a thing in itself that needs to be addressed. And the biggest difference between the two is that while it took some time for people to warm up to Albedo, Eula almost instantly became recognized as a solid character, and that's saying something, since not a lot of players tend to go for physical damage teams, but because her playstyle allows you to achieve 6-digit damage numbers even at C0, not to mention the fact her overall potential appeals to any type of player from free-to-play to a whale, it's kind of hard to pass up on her. The only thing you need to keep in mind when thinking about maximizing her playstyle is that Cryovision she carries only acts as a facade, as you won't be dealing any serious elemental damage, and you also kind of need to be aware her playstyle revolves around building up her combo meter for huge burst explosion, which means making the wrong move could cost you a big part of her damage output. Also, just because so much trust is put into her performance, she does require a lot of resin investment to see the returns, like obtaining niche artifact sets and leveling her talents as much as possible. But aside from this, now that Raiden has been around for a few months, she's an excellent duo partner for Eula, although Fischl still remains the most popular choice, just because if you take a look at Spiral Abyss stats, the Electro Archon gets utilized in teams like Rational, which makes perfect sense, since the beautiful thing about Eula is that you can build a really strong second Abyss team without relying on other high-in-demand characters like Benny or Xingqiu. So basically, while Eula is a technical character that demands a good number of resources, she still comes as a complete package even at 0 constellations, and provides a satisfying combat loop for those who enjoy building up one big explosion. If Genshin was a soap opera, then the biggest shocking reveal had to be Itto's skinny biceps. But I guess that's just MiHoYo's way of following standard character model design, although we did learn a lot of juicy details about this troublemaker that hopefully helps you understand just what kind of an impact this guy is gonna have in the next update. First of all, you need to understand Itto's playstyle will heavily revolve around building strength stacks, which you can gain in different ways, like using his normal attacks or obtaining some of the stacks from his elemental skill. But the main idea behind this is that by consuming one of the stacks, he will perform a wide slash attack, which from the looks of it, this can be done at least 4 times before the stacks run out, and he then ends the whole charged attack combo with a special finishing move. There's a lot more details about how this mechanic works, but the actual thing we need to focus on is the burst itself and why exactly Itto isn't going to be your typical damage dealer. Now, just like Noelle, he will infuse his attacks with Geo, and more importantly, the damage will get increased by a certain percentage of his defense, and if that's not enough, he also has a passive that further amplifies his special charged attacks with Itto's defense. So, like it or not, it's pretty clear his main stat isn't going to be attack, but defense instead. It's obviously not that surprising seeing how both Albedo and Noelle already scale off this stat, but it does mean what's been unconventional is starting to get slowly normalized together with Itto and Goro, which we'll get into more of it later in the next part. But the big question is, are you willing to jump through the hoops? Not only does Itto belong to the Geo element, which has no synergy with any element besides itself, but he also will need different artifacts and weapons from the ones the majority of players already own. Don't get me wrong, he seems like a breath of fresh air for Genshin's team building scene, but you have to wonder how many extra miles will players need to walk just to get those big damage numbers. In fact, even if mechanically they are different, the end result is kind of similar when you compare Itto to Noelle. Both of their attacks become infused with Geo, and they depend on their defense to scale their damage, so it almost looks like the case of Klee and Yanfei, as the similarities between the two are quite striking as well. Honestly, it's too early to talk about his potential, but some of the details revealed during the livestream have definitely provided a great insight of what you should expect from Itto, and truthfully, it's always great when a character has some kind of an internal mechanic like Arataki building strength stacks, as this provides a greater level of depth to his gameplay, and just from the preview alone, it's pretty clear his special charged attacks will be wide enough to damage multiple enemies, not to mention the fact he has an adorable bull companion to help him out. But it does raise a question, is MiHoYo trying to isolate Geo from the rest of the elements and make it as a premier standalone element that only knows how to work with itself? Well, we need to take a look at this next part. You know how in the past few videos I talked about 4-star characters like Thoma and Sara, who seem to be starting a trend for specialized units to help achieve some kind of a specific goal? Well, our fluffy-haired Goro here takes the cake when it comes to doubling down on that niche aspect. And the biggest takeaway about him is that both his elemental skill and burst are going to provide boosts for your team, but the catch is, it entirely depends on how many characters you have in your team who are from the Geo element. So if you have one Geo character in the team, then your party gains defense bonus. If you have 2 Geo characters, then everyone now has resistance to interruption. And finally, if your comp has 3 characters from the Rocky element, all teammates gain a certain amount of Geo damage bonus. Now, no matter how you look at it, at least this makes things crystal clear because of how hard MiHoYo is trying to push the whole Mono Geo team building aspect. And this is just bare bones info we got about Goro. Think about the constellations, and if he ends up having something insane like Kujo Sara boosting critical damage, then Goro basically will become the Bennett of Geo elements, but exclusively just for the Geo element alone. Point is, if you want to build a serious Mono Geo team, it is more than likely you'll want Goro in your comp, and it's kind of a conflicting feeling, because even if we don't know what exact damage multipliers and stat boost numbers he will provide once he's out, the fact that he is so laser focused for enabling Mono Geo makes him feel like a piece of the puzzle you need to obtain in order to get to the end goal. At least with Thoma and Sara, you could still put them in some of the teams that don't necessarily rely on their main mechanics, since Sara actually can deliver a nice amount of burst damage, while Thoma can apply Pyro consistently, but with Goro, aside from mopping the floor with enemies in world exploration, any real team building potential with him seems to be closely associated with just the Geo element alone. Unless of course his elemental skill and burst damage prove to be so strong that he can be utilized in any team that needs quick swap damage dealer, although chances of that happening seems very low, seeing how MiHoYo has been careful with not creating another Bennett or Xingqiu. Either way, it's quite possible Goro will become an amazing partner for characters like Albedo, Noelle, and Itto, and it's more than likely we'll see some of of these combinations of this trio in the next update, although it is going to be interesting to see if someone like Geo Traveler, Ningguang, and Zhongli will be able to have great synergy with Goro, or if he is so deep into the niche that only defense scaling Geo characters will be able to benefit the most from him. Ultimately, when it comes down to which banner to go for, the approach of evaluating them has definitely changed since the latest livestream announcement. Basically, we'll be getting Albedo and Eula as two separate banners in the first phase of 2.3, but the awesome thing about it is that their pity rate is shared between each other. Think of it like this: since officially the pity rate is 90 wishes, how it normally works is that if you don't get a 5-star within that limit, you are guaranteed to get the next one at wish number 90, but anyone who has played the game long enough knows that the more realistic pity rate is around 75 wishes, which is a mathematically calculated and highly probable soft pity rate. And the beautiful thing here is that this soft pity rate will work on the two banners at the same time. So let's say you do 40 wishes on Albedo's banner and you don't get a 5-star character, you are now more or less guaranteed within the 35 wishes to get a 5-star in Eula's banner, if we assume you get lucky with soft pity, and of course, if you choose to do so. But while most of you are busy deciding which 5-star to go for, let's not forget we're probably going to get double the amount of featured 4-stars from both of the banners, which means it's going to be even easier to have more opportunities for beginners and veterans alike to obtain the actual 4-stars they want. MiHoYo also said that 4-star pity rate is shared between the featured banners as well, which is pretty awesome if you want to mix things up. This is probably a good time to say, this changes everything. And frankly, from the looks of it, it feels like Albedo and Eula banners are here to offer you a lot of flexibility when it comes to wishing and team building, while Ito and Goro banner in the second phase is going to be hyper-focused at unlocking a new team comp and more or less dedicated for veteran players, or maybe beginners and casuals who are willing to go deep into Geo. It's kind of baffling how different 2.3 is going to feel when compared to other updates, and it doesn't even contain any new regions or story quests. Obviously, Dragonspine is getting a new major event featuring characters like Albedo, Amber, Eula, and Bennett, so it is going to be exciting to see how this event story will unfold. However, there's definitely quite a few sneaky things you probably want to consider when it comes to wishing in this next update, especially with so many crazy changes that are going to be introduced. Anyway, thanks for watching till the end, and I hope you enjoyed the video.